Our planet is a well-knit ecosystem. It has a biosphere where all known life exists. We have approximately 5 to 10 million species, 50 billion birds, some 5,400 mammals, oceans, plants, and of course, us, some 8 billion humans. All of us share the same rocky planet which we call our home. And anything that happens in any part of the world can also have some consequences in an altogether different location. Now, planet heating, pollution from human activities is raising global temperatures, and scientists say that this is pushing crucial ecosystems and whole regions towards often irreversible changes. Vulnerable areas include melting of polar ice sheets that could cause meters of sea level rise, as well as the Amazon basin, where the tropical forests are at risk of turning into savanna. But can one tipping point have a domino effect on another region? Now, research which was conducted recently suggests that this is already happening. According to a latest study, climate extremes in the Amazon rainforest are directly affecting those in the Tibetan plateau. Scientists are warning that the Himalayan region, which is crucial for the water security of millions, was close to a potentially disastrous tipping point. Scientists in China, Europe and Israel have reported in Nature Climate Change that climate change-driven changes in the Amazon basin have a knock-on effect on the Tibetan plateau, which is some 20,000 kilometers away. But before we get into the details of the study, Amazon rainforests are called the lungs of the planet, and rightly so. They produce 80% of the total oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere through the process. It is the world's largest tropical rainforest, spreading across the South American countries of Brazil, Colombia, Peru, and many more. But in Brazil, under the previous leadership of Jair Bolsonaro and his administration, since he took office, the average annual deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon increased by 75% compared to the previous decade, destroying the forest cover of an area nearly the size of Puerto Rico last year. While natural causes of Amazon fire are also prevalent, experts say that the main culprits of the fires are the illegal farmers, ranchers and speculators clearing land and torching the trees. One of the world's most vital forests is burning, and with time, the fires have only worsened. The destruction of the Amazon rainforest is now having a cascading effect on the plateaus of Tibet. Let me tell you how the researchers carried out the study. Now, the researchers used global near-surface temperature data over the last 40 years to map out a pathway of climate links. They stretched from South America to Southern Africa, onto the Middle East, and finally into the Tibetan plateau. In their study, the researchers then used computer simulations to track how global warming might change these long-distance link-ups out to 2100. Now, in that, they found when it gets warmer in the Amazon, temperatures also rise in Tibet. But when rain increases in the South American rainforest, snowfall decreases in the Himalayan region, which is sometimes called the third pole. Using snow-covered data, the scientists also detected that what they say are early warnings. The Tibetan plateau has been approaching a tipping point of its own since 2008. The Tibetan plateau supplies a substantial proportion of the water needs of almost 2 billion people across South Asia, Southeast Asia and China. Last year, research published in the Nature Climate Change said that climate change could deplete terrestrial water storage over the Tibetan plateau, which may ultimately threaten water availability downstream. Although the researchers say, while their study suggests a heightened risk of tipping cascades, it was unlikely that the climate system as a whole would flip into a new state. Now, for more on this, we're being joined by Jürgen Kurz from Potsdam in Germany. He is the Senior Advisor at Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research. Welcome to the broadcast, Jürgen. Now, firstly, can you explain to our viewers briefly how climate tipping points in the Amazon and faraway Tibet are linked?
Yes, the climate system is a very local one, but also a very global one. Also we have to consider all interactions on a small scale, but also even on the global scale. But the problem is how to identify especially these global scale interactions. The local scale is rather easy with all these measurements, and so we know very well, and motion of the clouds, etc. But with the global scale is much more subtle and much more difficult. And we have developed a new technology to do this, to infer long-range connections, which are called teleconnections. And this is going via what we call complex networks. A complex network, you know, all a social network. You have your network of your friends and neighbors, etc. And you know the interactions, and we consider the whole climate system in the same manner. Also the interaction of all different parts. And then we developed some mathematical tools to identify, and this way we identified such a long-range teleconnection from South America till the Tibetan plateau. And this was first a statistical finding, if you wish, but then we also identified the mechanism, how it could go. And this is via large-scale streams, large-scale motions in the atmosphere, large-scale winds, which bring, are anticyclones in South America. This brings such formation, such patterns from South America to South Africa. Then we have the monsoon system in Africa, is also a monsoon system. And this in connection with other large-scale motions brings these patterns northwards. And then in the third step of this long pathway are so-called strong west winds coming from west called westerlies. And they bring then the patterns till the Tibetan plateau. This is a way of about 20,000 kilometers.
All right, Jürgen, in your report, you also speak about human activities which are behind the global temperatures pushing the crucial ecosystems towards irreversible changes. Can you shed some more light on that?
Yes, of course. At first, this is what is very well known, are the greenhouse gases, especially CO2, which we let emit strongly increasingly. This is a big problem, of course, and we have to reduce this very soon, not to burn so much coal, not to use so much oil, etc. But in the South American system, we have especially the deforestation of the Amazonian forest. And this is a big problem. This is, of course, once a problem to reduce the Amazon forest, but the main problem is the fragmentation, because usually they do not forest large areas, but rather small areas at different places. And due to this fragmentation, the whole system will be disturbed. And this has to be stopped immediately, because this fragmentation strongly changes, and there is a strong danger of what we call a tipping point. That means tipping from a forest, from a rainforest to a savanna or steppe-like formation. And this would change strongly the whole ecosystem. We have to expect an extinction of many species, but also a strong increase of the temperature. And this, what we have shown, is then has influence on Tibetan plateau. That means that there will be stronger melting of the ice, and also the snowfall is not so much, etc. And this is what we humans can do, and we have to do very, very soon. Also first, stop deforestation and strongly reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
All right. Do you think that the global efforts that are currently underway to fight climate change are enough?
No, very clear no. We were all so optimistic after the Paris Agreement in 2015. But you know, then President Trump came, he stopped all this from the US side, but this is now renewed. But and the last big meeting in Egypt was some success, but not enough success, because we have really to do much more and much faster and much more concrete. For instance, to help the very poor countries by the more rich countries, this was written there, but it was not written how much money to give whom when. Also it's not concrete enough, and this is very important. We have to have much more concrete measures. Also, each of the countries have to argue we will reduce. Even Germany has not reached his aims, only to give one example, but also India is far away from this. And we have to be much more powerful and to convince the important people, the decision makers, to handle now, not to shift. We cannot shift it anymore because the danger is increasing a lot. And then we come to this tipping. Also we have now already tipping in the coral reefs, which is not so, which is very bad, but it's not so important from the global perspective. But if the Amazon will tip, or if the poles will tip, then or Tibet plateau, then we really have very, very serious problems. And these are then, we cannot reverse it. They are irreversible problems. And this brings then real difficult problems to the whole mankind, to all humans.
Jürgen, a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you very much for your valuable insights there. WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.